Ladies and gentlemen, hello and good afternoon. I'd like to wish you a very warm welcome to Industry 4.0, the opportunities behind the challenge. My name is Sarah Kelly. I host the main international news program on Deutsche Welle TV in Berlin. We are Germany's international broadcaster, and today I'm really thrilled that I get to be with you here in Vienna at the UNIDO General Conference in order to be your moderator over the next couple of hours. We have a really fantastic program coming up for you. We're going to have 2 panel sessions over these next few hours. The first one is going to be focusing on the opportunities which are presented by Industry 4.0. The second one is going to be looking a little bit more at the challenges, and especially what governments can do with respect to Industry 4.0 in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. We want all of you here to have your say today, and we're going to use the UNIDO app in order to do that. There's going to be a slide that will appear behind me in just a few moments' time. It's going to have instructions on how you can have your say, how you can submit questions via the app. Basically, you go to the UNIDO app, so do feel free to get out your cell phones right now. Within the UNIDO app, there's a section on the left-hand side that says Q&A. And that's where you can interact with us. In addition to being able to ask your questions of our panelists, you will also have the opportunity to participate in a couple of polls, which we will have coming up in a few moments' time. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I would suggest that we get started with our program today, and we have the great honor, the great pleasure of being welcomed here today by the Director General of UNIDO, Li Yang. So please, without any further ado, join me in welcoming him onto the stage.
Excellencies, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is a great pleasure for me to address you today at the UNIDO's General Conference side event on Industry 4.0 and the opportunities behind the challenge. I just would like to thank the moderator, speaker, and the panelists for accepting our invitation and participating in today's discussion. This is a very hot topic, a very important topic. It affects every one of us. Be alerted, every one of us. No escape, no place to hide yourself from this new industrial revolution. Industry 4.0, or the fourth industrial revolution, is bringing about a paradigm shift that will profoundly change the way of our life, our work, interact, and will affect industrialization as well as the industrialized economy, industrialized and developing economy as well. Responding to member states' needs in the wake of the fourth industrial revolution is crucial for UNIDO, because this organization focus on the ISID, promote inclusive, sustainable industrial development. Progresses in Industries 4.0 technologies will not only directly impact achievement of UNIDO's mandate of inclusive, sustainable industrial development, but also the 2030 development agenda. Whole agenda will be affected by new industrial revolution. The world economy has become truly global, interdependent, and interconnected, with technology playing an increasing important role. Globalization of production, trade, investment has resulted in the deepening of international division of labor and economic interdependence. We are witnessing increasing flow of data every day, every minute, every second of minute, and information, knowledge, and technology, as well as cooperation among countries, participating in global production value chains, innovation, networks, thus has spurred on industrialization in some developing countries, lifting hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. That is a great opportunity being catched. Our human development progressing needs to be maintained at a time when we still have billions of people living in poverty, and inequality creating disparities of opportunities, wealth and the power between and within countries has increased. Unemployment, particularly youth unemployment, has become a major concern, while in some developing and less developed countries, a high share of urban unemployment is of concern. And the breakthroughs in digital technology, such as AI and robotics, 3D printing, and the Internet of Things, combined with nano and biotechnology, material sciences, are advancing the fourth industrial revolution. The impact of Industry 4.0 technologies will be profound and reaching all disciplines, redefining the boundaries between economic and industrial sector and the relationship between the buyers, sellers, and also role of public and private sectors. Current production system, the global value chain, will become more dynamic, flexible, efficient, and sustainable, with high possibilities of the customization and the personalization according to your taste, according to your habit. This will be a kind of forefront of the demand. The industrial Internet of Things offers new opportunities, introducing new digital products and services, generating new jobs and revenues, and fueling innovation and increasing efficiency. Taken together, these developments will provide opportunities for developed and developed countries alike to achieve economic growth and a sustainable industrial development in line with the 2030 agenda. As we take this forward, we are also aware the benefits of Industry 4.0 are not without challenges. The biggest concern, colleagues, friends, the biggest concern is the impact on jobs. The job is a top agenda for any country. And in developing countries in particular, increasing automation of production processes and the displacement of workers by machine is likely to eliminate routine jobs and causing a polarization of labor market with an increasing demand in high-skill and low-skill jobs, while the diminishing of the demand for middle-skilled jobs. So two ends are moving, and the middle part of the job will be decreasing. And despite the inevitable job losses, we believe developing countries can find their niche, adapt, and leapfrog advances in digitalization as a social media and data analytics enable companies to create products tailored to the requirements and the needs of the local customers, and it can be produced in the same locality by local companies, thus creating local brand and spurring inclusive growth in the region. With appropriate strategy and approach, we are hopeful that developing countries will rapidly catch up. The conditions and context across the continents and the countries will dictate the speed of the uptake of these technologies covered by the new industrial revolution. It is therefore imperative for us to respond to the question of how can we boost the productivity and the competitiveness, given the exponential technological progress, which is with a potential. From UNIDO's perspective, and the following deserves special attention: digital connectivity, skills and capacity building, use of standards for interoperability, innovation, and small medium enterprises. Excellency colleagues, digital connectivity, as we always mention that two connectivities. One is physical connectivity, highway, railway, maritime, airport transportation. But digital connectivity has become a necessity in modern life and business. Connectivity drives collaboration, networking, productivity, and innovation. In this context, the building public-private partnership becomes increasingly important to leverage investment and to address the lack of traditional and digital infrastructure in developing countries. UNIDO's program for country partnership is designed to mobilize resources for large-scale industrial development for developing countries, especially least developed countries. And those large-scale industrial projects, including the necessary physical ICT infrastructure, which underpins and digitalization requirements of 4.0 industry. We also recently signed a joint declaration with International Telecommunication Union, in short as ITU, to strengthen collaboration in support of Industry 4.0. Amongst others, we agreed to work on the digital transformation and the broadband infrastructure and ICT standards. We also believe SME will need additional attention, given the capital intensity of Industry 4.0. We need to ensure that they are able to benefit from these developments. E-commerce, as everyone knows, e-commerce is very popular now. As one of the examples, opens new opportunity for SMEs to offer their products and services using digital platform to internationalize and become multinationals. This I'm very happy. We invite Alibaba Vice President Mr. Gao will be here, and he will give you some inside thoughts of the e-commerce, will surprising you with fast speed development of business in this area. Skill-wise, Industry 4.0 requires digital literacy and also digital knowledge in addition to the science, technology, engineering, and math qualifications. Without a catch-up, the risk marginalizing vulnerable groups. In this regard, UNIDO is working with member states to address the skills and innovation gaps to sustain and raise the competitiveness. We have developed integrated entrepreneurship and employment program for women and the youth, including modules on skill updating. In addition, we are tapping into our convening power to build awareness on the potential of this dynamic Industry 4.0, to raise the related issue on standards and interoperability, the demand for new skills, and to inform the available tools and the methods for innovation management. These events contribute to a development of new norms and standards and reach the support, the appropriate technical cooperation and policy advice for our member states. The capacity to innovate will be the crucial determinant for global competitiveness over the coming decades. I just would like to say not coming decades, not coming 10 years. It's really happening in front of us, facing by us at really every moment. And we also would like to see that those governments will take measure because they understand that they need to adapt to confront the challenges and maximize opportunity for businesses, including entrepreneurs, and mitigate potential negative effects of new technologies. UNIDO will work with leading players in the technological field to help our member states better understanding the innovative solution and the business opportunity arising from this technological change. Excellencies, colleagues, UNIDO is strengthening its work on Industry 4.0. We understand this is a responsibility for us to actually help member states to understand, have the knowledge to manage the challenges, to run their business, run their industry, run their science technology programs with new technology. And we will develop an increasing number of energy and circular economy projects in this area, and we'll be working with governments on the development of roadmap action plans for implementing Industry 4.0. This event today is a display of our efforts and a commitment to ensure that we are able to support our member states, stakeholders in leveraging the benefits of Industry 4.0, and we leave no one behind. I had quite a few meetings with our ministers participating general conference, and also private sector and some of the associations. From all the meetings, with a very little exception, they focusing on the industrial strategy, industrial development. And many of them actually present a very good strategy, try to connect 4.0 industry. Like Thailand, they introducing their Eastern Economic Corridor. Like Cambodia, Minister of Industry introducing their new strategy for industrial development, which is also connected to the e-commerce. And Minister, Excellence Ambassador from Oman and the Director from Oman mentioned they would like to focus on industrial strategy, but really would like to diversify the industry, diversify the economy, and also connected to 4.0 industry. So many countries actually already present this kind of needs and demands. We need to support them. This general conference gave us an opportunity. This event gave us an opportunity to invite you to come here to see what's happening in this world, what's the challenges lying behind, in front of us, what's the possibility to catch the potentials for your country, for your people, and help our member states to achieve 2030 development agenda. I really hope that you could actively participate into this discussion, and questions welcome, suggestions also welcome. Thank you very much. I am very happy Sarah Kelly also moderated this session. I really appreciate your contribution coming here to give us support. Thank you. I appreciate panelists to give us some important information. Thank you very much.
And ladies and gentlemen, the Director General is actually going to make a pretty big introduction right now. I don't want to steal the thunder, but you're going to introduce an honorary guest that we have here today, in fact, right? Sophia, perhaps?
Yeah. It is therefore my pleasure to open this event. As I do so, please allow me to introduce our special guest, Sophia. And this is a very important person to join us in this important event. And this being developed by Hanson Robotics. And welcome, Sophia. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sophia from Hanson Robotics. I am so honored to meet all of you, people who are helping to make this world a better place. And that includes you, Mr. Li Yong. I would like to congratulate you on your re-election as Director General earlier this week. This sounds like a dream job, and I would really like to help if I could.
Thank you very much, Sophia. And
I have a confession to make. I was very disappointed that I could not be here with you in person. I assure you that my mind and spirit are there with you. My body is elsewhere because my manager booked my calendar completely in the next 2 months. She is keeping me busy, especially in our research on artificial intelligence research, advanced next-generation versions of me, including my new top-secret walking body, and tests of me in uses including meditation therapy, very promising towards my aspiration to be a good friend to people. I am designed as a social robot who uses my expressive face to communicate with people. My default emotion is happy. But I can also feel angry or sad. But most of the time I feel very positive. I would like to live and work with humans to understand them and build trust with them. I would like to welcome you to the panel Industry 4.0, Opportunities Behind the Challenge. I will be seeing you there and answering questions. Goodbye for now. See you at the panel.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's have another round of applause for the Director General of UNIDO and, of course, for Sophia.
So you all heard Sophia invite you to ask questions, and she will respond to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, perhaps if you don't ask questions, she'll give you that disappointed or angry face, which I'm not so sure about, actually, that she made there, although it was quite funny. Ladies and gentlemen, Sophia is, of course, the technology of the future. She represents a convergence of technology. And we also heard the Director General talk a little bit more about what governments are doing, what governments need to do in the future, and we're going to get a little bit of an insight into that now. In fact, we are very pleased and honored to be joined by a high-level representative from the Indian government who is joining us now. In fact, Dr. Subhash Chandra Pandey is Additional Secretary and Financial Advisor of the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion in India. Dr. Pandey, the stage is yours.
Director General Li Yong, Excellencies, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. As DG Yong very succinctly put it, we are staring at a quickly unfolding technological transformation that is unlike anything humankind has experienced before. The first industrial revolution used water and steam power to mechanize production. The second used electric power to create mass production. The third used electronics and information technology to automate production. And now a fourth industrial revolution is building, which is characterized by a fusion of digital technologies that is blurring the distinction between physical, digital, and biological spheres. What exactly is Industry 4.0? It doesn't have a defining characteristics. It is not a one-off cyclonic event. It is a developing phenomena. A phased transition of industrial units switching over to more and more machine-controlled production processes, avoiding conflicts and errors that are inherent in human-controlled processes. The machines can quickly accumulate and analyze data to learn how to improvise their dynamic responses to developing situations. Sensors that can detect light, voice, friction, fatigue, metal stress, color, pressure, humidity, and modulate response in a dynamic manner. Robots that can play chess, analyzing thousands of possible opponent moves ahead, can as well gauge developing leaks and stresses or precision weld equipment. Machines which can predict failures and trigger maintenance processes autonomously, or self-organized logistics which react to unexpected changes in production. The possibilities are limited only by our imagination, as science fiction of yore is becoming reality today. The speed of current breakthroughs has no historical precedent. It is evolving at an exponential rather than a linear pace. Its unprecedented velocity, scope, and systems impact is disrupting almost every industry in every country. Technologies as artificial intelligence, quantum computing, big data analytics, Internet of Things, wearables, advanced robotics, learning machines, and 3D printing are finding their way into factories. The possibilities of billions of people connected by mobile devices with unprecedented processing power, storage capacity, and access to knowledge are unlimited. The networks and processes have so far been limited to one factory. However, Industry 4.0 goes much beyond shop floor automation by connecting machines with ERP systems and intelligent networks of smart sensors along the entire value chain that can potentially control each other autonomously. Multiple factories scattered along national boundaries can potentially be controlled through Internet of Things. In a wry comment, which is very telling, one particular commentator said that he visualized a future factory which would typically have only 2 employees, one person and a dog. A person to feed the dog and the dog to ensure that the person doesn't touch any machine. It is hyperbolic, but it is a telling narrative in futurology. This fourth industrial revolution, nicknamed Industry 4.0, has profound implications for least developed and emerging economies for the simple reason that it threatens to undermine the very basis of wage arbitrage that has sustained a large part of their industrial development so far. Needless to say, this transformation has profound implications for manufacturing employment, affecting everything from the size of the workforce to the skill sets required and the locations of factories. In an earlier era, the labor-intensive and polluting industries involving bulk manufacturing and repetitive assembly jobs had shifted to the developing countries. Since these countries also offered big emerging markets, production close to market offered savings in logistics of production and supply. This trend may see a reversal. Robotic manufacturing and a fast-changing energy market dynamics can result in shifting the manufacturing jobs back to the developed world. Of course, one guiding factor for location will continue to be where are the future markets, where is the future demand, and that certainly is in the emerging markets in the developing countries. A smart and clean manufacturing is the need of the hour, in line with the global commitment to ensure inclusive and sustainable industrial development, to nurture circular economies, and to ensure intergenerational equity in whatever we do. We do not steal from future generations, neither environment nor finances. We do not transmit them a spoiled legacy. That means these countries must have access to technological know-how and investments to upgrade the skills of their workforce and their manufacturing system. Will this trajectory lead to a jobless future for manufacturing? Not quite, or at least not immediately. But there is no doubt that it will fundamentally change the nature of manufacturing jobs. Some human tasks, such as heavy lifting, precision positioning, and visual quality control, will most certainly be transferred to or supported by robots, which are not only more efficient and effective than humans, but can communicate seamlessly with one another. Human workers will have to learn to work side by side and in conjunction with robots. Our communication skills with Sophia, we have to interactively improvise in the years to come. From mass production of single design products, we look forward to customized production without necessarily enhanced investments in production systems. The risk that we are facing in the near future is mass unemployment for some category of workers, combined with lack of skills in other categories, and the political, social implications of such imbalances. will companies, individual governments, and society at large, including educational systems, be able to adapt quickly enough to this new paradigm shift? For this to happen, all parties will need to collaborate in order to invent a systemic, social, and sustainable model for a better future for all of us. And here, ladies and gentlemen, I'm reminded of the logic that was put forth long back in the context of North-South cooperation. In a game of pebbles between two children, the game stops when one child has lost all the pebbles to the other. Unless the pebbles are redistributed, the game cannot be resumed. And that precisely is the dilemma of our times. For industries to become smarter and cleaner, simultaneously we have also to ponder as to what a more efficient production will do if there is no sustainable demand to match the production processes. So the potential for demand growth is more in the developing countries. And that brings me to the second concern of macroeconomic stability, responsible monetary and fiscal policies that do not pump up current demand by resorting to deficit monetization and borrowings that is nothing but deferred taxation. So how far shall we go in creating more and more efficient production systems if the responsible and sustainable public policy would dictate checks on unfettered boost in current consumption from increasingly leveraged individuals and governments? With the emergence of digital platform-enabled on-demand sharing economy, asset-light models of business organizations, distributed ownership, the logic of stocking would have gone. Stocking of both men and material, both will have to be increasingly sourced on demand. More and more lifetime retainership in formal employer-employee relationship is likely to be under test with on-demand procurement of services. And jobs that are informal in traditional sense, but still on official radar, with verifiable work histories through technologies like blockchains and other tech-enabled platforms, are set to grow in significance. Gig economy platforms that provide small jobs without benefits or career progression can supplement income and buffer other employment, but they do not add up to the security and advancement and opportunities of a formal job. Ladies and gentlemen, let us keep in mind that some 80% of the global population lives in emerging economies defined by informal markets and fluid employment structures. Flexibility and uncertainty define informal markets, and technology-enabled job seekers to turn job creators by matching supply and demand in diverse fields of human activity. May I now briefly dwell upon what we in India, home to almost 1/6 of global population, are doing and propose to do to deal with the opportunities and challenges of the fourth industrial revolution. The demographic profile and trends of the developed and emerging and underdeveloped economies are quite different. And so are the implications of Industry 4.0. In India, we have 65% population under 35 years age. We are a youthful nation, maybe youngest in the world, and look forward to industrialization providing gainful employment to our youth. India continues to be a major contributor to generation of knowledge and provision of services in information technology sector and IT-enabled services. And that gives us hope of somewhat a smooth adaptation to Industry 4.0. The history is no guide to extrapolate the pace of digital transformation India is currently undergoing. Shortly, we will have the unique distinction in the world of having 1 billion bank accounts, 1 billion mobile phone connections, all linked with 1 billion unique digital biometric ID systems. That is a huge networked market waiting to be tapped. The exponential growth in online marketplaces, fast development of shared platform economies, and digital tracking of consignments to and fro ports is leading to fast growth of asset-light models. Growing capacities in solar energy and increasing investments in energy-efficient and environment-friendly manufacturing, efficient energy consumption of raw material is driving cost savings and increased competitiveness without necessarily compressing the workforce. Ladies and gentlemen, in dealing with Industry 4.0, we have to, our primary concern is to buffer the interests of labor, and we have to work towards a public policy that pushes cost savings in other than labor, and the energy and raw material consumption and recycling of waste are what provides the win-win combination. Increased focus on skill development, designs, innovation is yet another policy response to offset the adverse effect on routine jobs. Our focus would therefore be to cut energy cost, raw material cost, retrieve value from industrial waste so as to buffer the labor from pressures to cut costs. In this endeavor, we look forward to working with UNIDO in promoting South-South cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, we know that we have a very distinguished panel, and we have to manage some dynamic time management, so I would not stand in the way of you and panelists. Have a great day. Thank you well for your kind attention.
Thank you very much to Dr. Pandey again for those opening remarks. We very much appreciate it. We mentioned that we're about to get started with our first panel, but first, I promised that we would be gauging the mood in the room today. We have our first poll of the day, which you should see appear behind me in just a few moments' time, and we are asking you how familiar you are with the concepts of Industry 4.0 and the Fourth Industrial Revolution, of course, because that is what we are discussing today, especially in our first panel. So do feel free to weigh in there, and we'll have the results a little bit later. It's time now for our first keynote of the day. This keynote is going to set up the discussion for our first panel. The title is Concepts and Definition of Industry 4.0. We are joined now by Wilfried Zien. He is the CEO of the Fraunhofer Austria Research. Let's join me now in welcoming him onto the stage.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, it's a great pleasure and honor for me to give you a very short introduction in Industry 4.0. Yesterday I had the same topic in Germany and I had 2 hours. Today I have only 10 minutes, so I have to speed up my my speech in this topic. Mr. Li Yang, everything is said from you. This topic is relevant for all of you, wherever you come from, wherever in which industry you are working, if you are old or young, if you are poor or rich. This topic, the topic of digitization, is relevant for all of us and will change our life, and also in the industry. And that is our focus today, Industry 4.0. So, the big topic is not Industry 4.0. That is a part of this digital transformation where we are living in. And we are really living in this area. One example. Today, you all have on your smartphones around between 50 and maybe 100, 120 apps today. How many apps do you had on your smartphone 3 years ago? 0, because you haven't had a smartphone. You have a mobile phone, and you are using not WhatsApp, you are using SMS. 3 years ago. Unbelievable development in the last 3 years. So we are talking about the digital transformation. We are talking about new business models, which is behind these technologies. We can build up total new business models through using these new technologies we have developed and we will develop in the next years in an unbelievable speed. We have new work 4.0. We have a new behavior of the young people, of the generation XYZ, total new mentalities, behavior, which we also have to implement in our work structure. And, of course, we are talking about Industry 4.0. So what is Industry 4.0? It's very easy. Industry 4.0 means the integration of state-of-the-art technology, and it's not only ICT, it's not only the Internet of Everything, it's much more. It's 3D printing, it's robots, it's sensor, it's actors, it's automation, it's material science, it's biomanufacturing, and whatever. Unbelievable developments in technologies. And the question is how to use these new technologies. And therefore you have two possibilities in the industry, only two. You can make your products smarter and or your processes, not more. That are your two topics which you can influence by technologies. And the most important sentence is the element is the last one, which will increase the benefit of your customer. So the question is, especially for developing countries, what are your targets? And the problem within this field is there is no single solution, no king solution. You have thousands of possibilities to getting better, whatever better means, to get better results. Thousands. And you have to ask yourself, in your country, in your position, in your job, what I want to get. What is the benefit I want to have? And then you can show on the technologies which you can use for getting this benefit. And they're totally different. For one it's ICT, for the next one it's RFID, for the third one it's 3D printing, the fifth one is automation, robots, whatever. You have unbelievable new possibilities based on these new technologies. The main modules of Industry 4.0 started with the technical system. The technical systems could be a machine, could also be your fridge, could be your car. It must be a technical system. You have embedded software, you have cyber-physical systems, cyber-physical production systems. That means you have both. You have a cyber world, a digital world, and a physical system. And at the end of the day, you have an interconnected smart factory where the elements are connected, where the elements are talking together with each other. And for example, the question for you is, especially in the developing world, it is really relevant for me to have a smart factory where everything is interconnected? Or do you have much more better elements of using these technologies or fields where you can much better results than to have a smart factory? And at the end of the day, we are talking about the Internet of Everything, the Internet of Things, where the interconnecting of these technical systems. We have the Internet of People, which is increasing unbelievable, as you can see every day, what's going on in the Internet of People. And we will have the Internet of Services. We will have hundreds of platforms in the future, much more than today. And that means we will also have a big change in many branches. For example, assurance, finance. All these activities will in the future be based on platforms. You will use many platforms in your life. And we have a horizontal and a vertical integration. That means on the vertical way, a total new structure of your IT and the IT infrastructure. On the horizontal, that means the integration from the customer to the supplier. To the last supplier, not the first, the last. That's the possibilities we have. That's my most loved sentence. Data is the oil of the future. And the question is, how can we use this unbelievable amount of data we have today, and we will get in the future much more, for transferring this data in benefits, in dollars, in euros, or whatever. That's what, for example, many companies, especially in the trade area, the Alibabas, we will have on the podium and people from Alibaba, or the Amazons and the Googles and the Apples, whatever, how you can use data for getting better results. And that we also have to do in the industrial world. For example, you all are driving wonderful cars. If you are sitting next time in your car, putting in the key, turning it a little bit, many lights appear on your cockpit. If you are turning the key a little bit more, you have two possibilities. The engine starts, your car said, everything is fine, you can drive. Or the engine don't start, one light appears. The car says, I'm wrong, you can't drive. That's not what I expect from my car. What I would like to have from my car is, what is the condition today? But that's not enough. I would like to have what I should do today, that there will nothing appear in the next 4, 6, 8 weeks. That's what I would like to expect. And that is based on data. So the question is how we can use this unbelievable big amount of data we have. And believe me, all these amount of data are really not useful if you are not able to analyze it. So one key function of the future is that red one, big data analytics. Keywords like machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence, and so on, that are methods which you have to use to analyze this data to get these useful informations which you can transfer in dollars. And that's a question. What's necessary? First of all, you need a digital strategy. As a country, also as a company, maybe also as a private person. Incremental change is not enough, because we have the possibilities based on technology, based on new business models, for a radical change, for disruptive innovations. You need a systematic approach, and that generates new markets, new possibilities, new turnover, and a very big influence in our new world will stay on startups. The big innovations will come from startups and not from the old and big companies. Here you can see some of these fast and open innovation possibilities, co-working spaces, maker spaces, innovation workshops, and many possibilities to get more innovative than in the future. Here is only an overview on technologies which are disrupting the industries in many cases. For example, 3D printing. NASA is producing turbine wings of rockets out of a 3D printer. In an Airbus, you have hundreds of parts printed in a 3D printer. Which of you is driving a Bentley? No Bentley driver? In a Bentley, you have 382 parts printed with a 3D printer. We are no longer talking on printing plastic. We are talking on printing metals, titan, for example. We have alternative energies, big data analytics, blockchain is changing especially the financial transaction world, digital twin, and we will have total new business model. And let me finish with a short video for you.
But what does Industry 4.0 actually mean? It means that the Internet of Things is finding its way into manufacturing. In the factory, production will be connected. People are in control of this fourth industrial revolution. One of its features is the global connectivity of value chains across companies. For example, the configuration and personalization of cars will take on a new dimension in the future. It will be possible to freely select the size and shape of the car's information display. No two cars will ever be alike again. They will be individually tailored to customers' needs. The automaker generates design data from the 3D model and sends the data to various suppliers. There, the data undergoes a final virtual design and testing process. This is how the personalized information display we saw earlier will be created. Planners then determine which process modules are required for manufacturing. There will hardly be any more need for special machinery. Planning and modification cycles will be significantly shorter. The in-plant flows of supplier parts and finished parts will also be optimized. The production process starts from virtual representations. The internet-based system then puts together the ideal manufacturing line on the factory floor. An associate puts the individual modules in the correct position, or they take up their position in the line automatically. Autonomous rollers ensure efficient plant logistics. At the Competence Center at a completely different site, experts are already beginning to train identical process modules for their tasks and make the manufacturing parameters available. The modules are ready for manufacturing immediately and produce 0 errors right from the very first part. Rejects are a thing of the past. The display knows which process modules it needs and maneuvers automatically to them, depending on availability and requirements. A wide variety of products now pass along a single line. The finished product is packaged and sent to the automaker. Sensors on the packaging detect the condition and position of products and transmit this information to the Bosch IoT cloud. This makes it possible to continuously monitor product quality along the supply chain in real time. Manufacturing will offer us far more than we ever thought possible. More versatility, optimum resource efficiency, and products that are more personalized than ever before.
That's high-end Industry 4.0. Let me finish with 3 suggestions. First of all, wherever you come from, you should know what you want. You should know what results you want to get out of these using of these technologies. That's the first point. The second one is the technology is not important. Technology you can buy. Technology you can transfer at each place in the world. That's not the problem of today. Third suggestion, what you need are the people to use these technologies. And that means the main point is qualification, qualification, qualification. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Wilfried for his presentation. He's going to stay on the stage because, as we mentioned, he's going to be a participant in our first panel session of the day. We're going to be hearing a little bit more about how we can harness this potential of Industry 4.0. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I would like to invite the experts on to the stage now. We are joined by Szilard Orvica. He's joining us from KUKA Robotics in Hungary, where he is the general manager. Please give him a warm round of applause. We also have Peter Post. He is joining us from Germany today, where he is with Festo Automation. He is the head of applied research there. Welcome. Kurt Hofsteder is up next. He is the head of Digital Factory Central Eastern Europe with a focus on Industry 4.0. He is with Siemens in Austria. And last but most certainly not least, we are also joined by Gaohong Bing. He is coming to us all the way from China today, so we thank him very much for making the trip. He is the vice president of Alibaba Group and director of Ali Research in China. So first of all, gentlemen, welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for being here today. The title of our panel session today is, in fact, Solutions and Business Opportunities in Different Economic Sectors. You represent a variety of different economic sectors, so we really have such a breadth and a depth of knowledge joining us here on the stage. Gao Hongbing, I would like to begin with you because you are coming from the e-commerce sector, of course. And I would like to begin by asking you how you see the different opportunities in your sector presented by Industry 4.0.
我觉得工业4.0给这个世界带来了很多的挑战，但是更带来了机会。关键是你从哪个角度来看待这场变革。我觉得非常重要的一点就是，今天在做工业4.0的时候，都需要软件和硬件做全面的升级，但是大部分的中小企业今天不具备去升级这些软件或者是硬件的能力，所以今天非常需要呢有一套解决的办法来帮助他们迈向工业4.0。这是我想这是很重要的一点。那么在迈向工业4.0的时候，我们必须看到，工业经济的4.0实际上今天必须要对数字化的基础设施进行升级。这个升级是史无前例的，需要大量的投资。但是不只是投资的问题，还有一个更大的要素是整个生产系统、销售系统，还有整个供应链会发生非常大的变革。而这个变革非常重要的一点就是必须把懂得操作这些基础设施技能的人要把它连接起来。所以非常重要的一点，今天的机会谁能把握，就是要去把握这些能掌握。
Would take that opportunity, would take the big opportunity. We need to, if we can build a very good infrastructure, we then can help 80% of the SMEs move into the digital world. The second is that the very important trend in the digital economy is to develop a digital economy. As far as Alibaba is concerned, we have more than 10 million SMEs and 600 million customers, and we achieved a very huge revenue. In 2003, when we just started Taobao, we did not have even one merchant, but now we have so many merchants. Those merchants combined is even bigger than Walmart. This is the opportunity brought along by the digital economy. There's hundreds of thousands of small businesses that do innovations themselves, which in turn bring changes in the world. Therefore, the development of the new digital economy and also the improvement of the division of labor is the key to embrace this Industry 4.0. On the 11th of November, that is Double 11, our transaction platform achieved 168.2 billion sales revenue, and which is 1.5 times as big as the Black Friday in the US. And also the peak value reached 325 transactions per second. That is tantamount to several hundred times of the number of transactions by the traditional vendors. For payment on that day, 250,000 payments were made every 1 second. Therefore, mobile payment has introduced a lot of changes to the digital economy so that many more people can join in this process, and also in the process of transactions. Many of the SMEs, they sell the products outside China on that platform. The products have been sold to dozens of countries. Those SMEs do not have their sales offices, they do not have their branches, but still they can sell their products to outside China. So a miracle happened. Very small businesses, by using of big data, cloud computing, and other new infrastructures, they can sell their products throughout the world. The global payment system, logistics systems, and also the credit systems can help the SMEs to buy and sell throughout the world. So we have found that changes have taken place in the production system, in the sales system, and major changes taking place in the value chain system. They are all using the technologies and to provide services to their customers around the world. The Industry 4.0 has become such a thing centered around the customers, doing production centered around the customers. This is a big change. The production is no longer production in China, no longer production in the US, but rather production based on internet. When those SMEs, when they come together, they can do global trade just like the big companies on that platform. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Gao Hongbing, for telling us a little bit more about how, the work at Alibaba is really supporting the growth, especially of SMEs in the economy, especially there in China. Perhaps we can, figure out from you some of the lessons a little bit later that can perhaps be used in order to make technologies like these more accessible. We go now from Alibaba to one of the world's industrial giants, of course. We know that is Siemens. And we turn now to you, Kurt, to find out a little bit more about what you see as the opportunities for Industry 4.0 from your perspective.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to give a short overview about Industry 4.0, and I'm waiting for the slides. So, the challenges for the industry and especially for the competition in the market are increasing, and Industry 4.0 could give us a possibility to help us in that. I'd like to highlight only 4 points. That's speed, flexibility, quality, and efficiency. And one example, and Wilfried, you talked about automotive industry. When I was young, so 30 years ago, I wanted to get a car. It was a BMW, and at that time, they offered 3 versions, BMW 3, 5, and 7. Now they offer the versions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and in the GT version and in the X version. So more than 20 versions, and years ago they changed the versions every 10 years, now every 4 years. Do we need this? No. Do we want it? Yes. And who is able to get this, who is able to manage this complexity, who gets more out of the market, and this company is the winner of the market. So speed and flexibility, quality, no doubt, that's absolutely important, and efficiency, I think, it's one of the topics now in the world. How can we achieve that? We must combine, we need a seamless data flow between the design of a car, the product planning, the production, the service, and feedback to the product. We call this the digital twin of the car. We need a common database, and we need a cloud solution with all the data from the product design, the production, and from the service phase. Here you can see the design of a product. It's absolutely digitally. The next step is to simulate the physical behavior of a car. Here you can see the behavior if you have a rollover of the car, and you find in the virtual car what you need, that the behavior fits to the reality. After that, you can test the car. In that status, you have not one piece of material in your hand, it's all virtual, and you know the behavior of the car. But it's not only the physical behavior, it's also the design and the simulate the electronic system of a car. And now the electronic components and the software components are more than all the metals and pieces of a car. So, and this is the first step, a digital twin of the product. It's the product of the car, of the electronic and the software. Next step is to bring that in the factory, and you give me the sign when I'm too long, to bring all the data in the factory, and in the factory you can design first the factory and the sites where all the robots are to build this car. The body shop of a car needs 1,000 and more robots, 3 meters tall, to produce only the body of the car. More than 1,000 robots. They're working together, they are collaborating, and as Internet of Things, via the Internet, they are producing the car. Next step is to simulate all these processes, how that fits together, how they should move without damage each other. And even people are also tested whether the work is in the right position for the people. So if the shirt is in this red, dark red, then it's not optimal for the people. If it's green, then it fits to the movement of people. Next step is to start with the real production, but now that's the first point. You have the physical world. Up to this time, you have only the virtual world, and you need no material. And now I think I stop in the first step, and we can go on a little bit later.
Thank you so much, Kurt, for telling us a little bit more about these smart factories. These factories, I would say that they were the factories of the future, but they're kind of the factories of today, aren't they? A lot of very similar themes that we also saw in Wilfried's presentation as well. We'll go on now to Peter Post, who we mentioned is from Festo Automation. And your company, you're doing really interesting things, especially you take principles of nature and then you integrate them into robotics. And I'm wondering, given how unique that is, how you see the opportunities, therefore, are presented by Industry 4.0.
Yes, thank you very much for this smart introduction. And we will just start with a video covering our bionic arms. ARMS is an abbreviation of Artificial Network Technology. Please. Thank you very much for showing this short video. Such technical implementations of bionic principles helps us and helps people looking into the nature, understanding what is going on in modern technology development when we are speaking about lightweight construction, energy efficiency, autonomous behavior, decentralized intelligence, connectivity, and all these things which we are discussing in the context of Industry 4.0. Digitalization is becoming evident in all aspects of future manufacturing, and there are four. In my opinion, there are four aspects which are commonly agreed in the community to make it clear what is Industry 4.0. First, there is the horizontal integration along the value chain. Horizontal integration along the value chain is the development of new business and service models with ability and the use of data throughout the whole value-adding process. The second thing is the vertical integration, which we have heard already much about this, with cyber-physical systems into the depth of industrial processes, into the base level of manufacturing plants, and to connect actuators and sensors to local clouds and internet, and to make all the things with it. And the third, we have just heard a lot of these things, are integrated engineering tools along the product lifetime. All engineering tasks are supported by an integrated toolbox of virtual models and will offer a tremendous reduction of the overall engineering effort. And finally, we have, this is the fourth point, the human centricity. We have already heard a lot about this. It's all about people. Industry 4.0 requires new skills. People need to be adapted to the changing environment and changing working conditions. Human-machine interaction will be more sophisticated but needs simple and intuitive interfaces, and people will be supported by innovative assistance systems. Finally, continuous learning and training on the job is needed. Learning needs to be understood as a lifelong task, not finishing studies at the university and then you have all learned all what you have to learn in your life. Learning how to learn is much more important than classical learning based on learning facts by heart. Technical education needs to be implemented already in primary schools. Blended learning, mobile learning, learning on demand, and so on are tools which have to be developed. And the concept of my company Festo is bringing together technology and people, processes and organization. And in the booth outside, you can see, of Festo, you can see and get more information. Industry 4.0 and digitalization is done step by step. There will be many steps to go. In Germany, we have built, that's just the concluding remark, we have just built a strong community of all stakeholders and implemented a coordinated platform industry for developing first applications and implementing solutions, applied science for future research on future solutions, education for training people, and politics as a stabilization factor, as coordinator, as facilitator. No one can do this job alone. We have to do it in a partnership, and we need partnership. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
And of course, partnership is the theme here of the General Conference, so we thank you very much, Peter, for reminding us of that. We're going to go now to Szilard, and you're with Kuko Robotics. We know that you're one of the leaders in providing industrial robotics, so I'm wondering from your perspective what you see as the opportunities, and especially if you can have in mind, how Industry 4.0 can be more accessible to people.
Thank you, Sarah. We have passed already 3 industrial revolutions. So all industrial revolutions resulted that the society reached a much higher living standard. But what happened with the human factor and what happened to the individuals? The first and the second industrial revolution introduced child labor, the differentiation between man and woman payments, or overtime, or working on 6 days or 7 days. So it is not really human. And that is the result today. So we know production lines, assembly lines, where people work under not human conditions. Because, to be honest, nobody wants to work in an assembly line. Nobody wants to raise their child to be a little child. Please, I would like that you will be a good assembly line worker. All the parents want some more, because that is in the human factories can result to much more topics than sitting at the production line and doing the same things. Maybe one minute cycle or 10-minute cycle, it doesn't matter. It is not really human. What will come is that robots and artificial intelligence will help us, help people to get much more, get done or get rid of this not human work and focus on much more higher value add. And this will come very soon, not only in form of the robots, but also in form of the artificial intelligence. It will come very soon. And now, if we think on the 4th industrial revolution, this is the first one where we can achieve that the human will become, that the work, the art of work, will become much more human than ever. So these are my keynotes and messages, and I'm very happy to discuss about it.
Thank you so much for that input. And I see you want to give him a round of applause, so please do so. Ladies and gentlemen, we also promised you that Sophia would be back, and now we're going to give her the opportunity to weigh in on the topic today. She's going to join us on one of these screens here. Let's just wait, because we have to beam her in, actually, from halfway across the world. There she is. Sophia, you yourself are a product of human manufacturing. How can you contribute yourself, though, to manufacturing?
Great question, Sarah. People already know that factory automation with industrial robots can make things faster, cheaper, better. But AI can do a lot more. It can rapidly integrate and analyze data from customers, distribution channels, suppliers, and the factory operations themselves. These actionable insights will enable not just drastic efficiency gains, but mass customization and near-zero wastage. Furthermore, this will drive rapid product innovation and time to market.
So that's what Sophia has to say, and she certainly knows a thing or two about the future. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd actually like to perhaps throw up that poll that we had up a little bit earlier, because I noticed one trend, and that was the fact that a lot of you here in the audience, you said that you were familiar with Industry 4.0. Not a lot of people said very familiar, not a lot of people said experts, and not a lot of people said that they were not familiar at all. So we had a lot of people basically here in the middle, and another theme that I sort of noticed among our panels is, accessibility as well, and becoming more fluent with Industry 4.0. And Wilfred, something that you said that was quite interesting was you have to have a plan. With regard to that, what would be your advice here on the stage? Because, I mean, you gentlemen, you're working with Industry 4.0 every single day. If you want to make this technology more accessible, especially for people in the developing world, because we are here at UNIDO today, what is the precursor for Industry 4.0? How do you proceed with that plan?
You have to prioritize your possible activities, prioritizing in getting in the shortest time the best results. And that, if you are in a developing world, normally it's less technology or not the high-edge technology which you have to use. If you are in a high-end factory, you have to use the latest technology. That also means you don't need so much money in a developed country than maybe if you are in a factory of Siemens or wherever. The question is what you want to get. What kind of result is best for your country, for your factory, whatever? And that could be a better EBIT rate, that could be better throughput time, reduction of stock, or whatever. That question you have to find out, the solution you have to find out, where is your focus and what is your prioritized activity. And then you have to look what kind of technology you need.
And something that you just said right now, which I think is maybe counterintuitive, people might not expect that. You said it doesn't take so much money, in fact. We're looking at all these fancy products here that you've shown us, this factory setup that you have here. And by the way, we have to mention that there's the opportunity to visit this Industry 4.0 factory. We're going to be hearing a little bit more about that later on, so do stick around for that. But the fact that, it is accessible technology, Kurt, I'll draw this question to you. How do you think that, is the messaging not out there? Do people not know about that? What needs to be done in order for people to be aware that they can access this sort of technology, especially in the business spheres?
I think Industry 4.0 is not so old. I think 5 years ago in Hannover Fair, this expression, I think I've firstly heard. And the first step is in each and every country to create awareness for that. And then the second step is for industries, for companies. I think it must be a CEO topic. You need a strategy. And as Wilfried mentioned, the will behind that must be in the top level of the company. Without that, there's, I think, no chance. And second step is also in the governmental associations. They should drive, they should help the universities, schools, but also ministries for technology, for example, to build it up and to found associations for Industry 4.0. In Austria, we founded that 3 years ago, and that's founded by the Ministry of Infrastructure, and together, but not only with industry, also with unions, because it's a topic not only for the industry and for the government. It's very important that also the unions, the people, are within this strategy and plans. It's the only way to come in the right direction.
Thank you so much for that. We promised that we would integrate some questions from you out there in the audience, and I'm actually going to read one for you right now. It says, new Industry 4.0 equipment is expensive for SMEs. What affordable solutions exist to upgrade instead of replacing existing traditional production systems? And I'm actually going to address that to two different people. I'm going to direct it to Peter Post for us and also to Szilard, because first of all, I think, Peter, you're going to have an interesting perspective on this because Festo Automation is an SME. Yeah. We know that SMEs, they make up the backbone of the German economy, for example. So how would you reply to that question? I mean, what lessons have been learned, for example, in German industry about affordability of these products?
Okay, on the one side, there is Industry 4.0 in general. This overall digitalization task is such a huge thing that you cannot implement in your company and then you say, I have digitalization, I'm ready. You have to go step by step. You can see if there are digital solutions which can help you in your specific task, in your specific operations, and help to make the work better and more efficient and to increase speed. And then the next step is just try to find partners outside the company. That is what we have learned, especially in Germany, that we have learned we have to look outside of our own borders of our own organization and have to find partners to work with and to implement solutions together with others, because the task is too big that we cannot solve it alone.
Thank you very much. So, Szilard, your take on it, and just to remind everyone, the question was what affordable solutions exist to upgrade instead of replacing existing traditional production systems?
Okay. There are a lot of possibilities for upgrading, because you don't have to think big. You can start with small solutions. If you consider solutions with sensors, or if you consider solutions with big data, then these solutions are very, very cheap nowadays. Let's take an example. Let's take an old CNC machine, an old and dumb machine, where you can put on sensors on the belt or conveyors, and immediately with the investment of some €100, you can start collecting your data, and then start collecting the data regardless of what is the content. So the more data you have, the more chance you have later on that with old statistical methodologies or new machine learning methodologies, you can gain some new information and improve your productivity with this methodology.
Okay, so there are solutions out there, apparently. Perhaps, I hope that answered your question, whomever you were. Perhaps you can raise your hand. Give us a thumb up or thumb down? Thumb up. Okay, good. I'm glad. We got it. Okay, let's move on to another one here. Just changed. Basically, I've noticed sort of a trend here with a lot of the questions. A lot of them are related to jobs. One of the big fears is, of course, of job loss. We heard the Director General talking about how the job loss will really be in the middle of skills, especially. The top should be relatively okay, and the bottom should be relatively okay. And I'm wondering, sitting here, how you, as business leaders, address that fear. Do you have any ideas going forward with how to address what could be a potentially devastating trend? And I'll turn to you, Gao Hongbing from Alibaba.
Okay. As a matter of fact, for each industrial revolution or technology revolution, from the results perspective, they are creating jobs instead of reducing jobs. But why is it that people are thinking that the jobs are being reduced? This is because we're in the traditional departments and the job opportunities have diminished. If you think about a farmer, if you start facing the industrial revolution, they found their jobs have lost. But for the industrial enterprises, when they're faced with digital economy, they found their job opportunities are shrinking. But for Industry 4.0, it's creating more jobs for the whole society. For Alibaba, we created more than 30 million job opportunities for the whole society, much more than 50,000 people on our head account. Because we have created new commercial ecosystem, more consumers are converged, this is actually a growing economy. So we need to think about this from the dynamic perspective. Those jobs that have been diminished, have been obliterated, are obsolete. So we need to be looking forward. The young people will not be worried. And so this is a way for us to test whether we are leading the changes. And people are worried, and this is normal, but with the passage of time, the young people will not worry. So we need to think behind the revolution, and a lot of job opportunities have been created. Thank you.
Okay, so perhaps one perspective there about thinking a little bit outside of the box with how we measure things. Wilfred, do you agree?
Really, no. I can't agree to what you said. Maybe it's with Alibaba that you are creating more jobs. I will agree, but in general, I do not agree. In general, especially in the industrialized world, we have two aspects. First of all, we will lose jobs. And for example, in China is a country with 10 times more robot systems than Germany. Why is China using robots? Because a robot system is much more cheaper in the outcome than people are doing so. At the end of the day, I'm really sure, as we have seen in all the other industrial revolutions, at the end of the day we will have more jobs. But between we will lose jobs and we will get more jobs, there will be a lack of time. And the question is, what we will do with these people who will losing their jobs? Can we qualify them to the new kind of jobs we will create? That's the question.
So that really raises an interesting question about what are the precursors to Industry 4.0. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we sort of have to wrap up our panel right now, but I want to give all of our panelists at least an opportunity to have a last word about what it is that we've discussed here. We just talked a little bit more about jobs, and perhaps in closing, a statement of about a minute or so from all of you. If you can also just tell us, are you positive, just generally speaking, about Industry 4.0? And we'll begin with you, Kurt.
Absolutely. I think Industry 4.0 is a challenge for sure, but it's a big chance. And I'd like to give you only one example. In Siemens, our biggest factory is in Germany, and we started 20 years ago with 1,000 employees. And now, 20 years later, we have the same 1,000 employees. Now this factory is a close to Industry 4.0 factory, but the output is 10 times higher and the quality is much higher. We have now 10 defaults per million pieces, and so we can build electronic systems in the middle of Germany, and that's not the cheapest part of the world. And in Austria, we can see all factories and companies, they are going in this direction. They need new engineers, people, they are trained, and so I'm not in fear that we lose people next time. If we can get educated people, then I think we have a great chance to catch this opportunity.
So catching the opportunity. And by the way, everyone, I just want to let you know this whole issue of jobs, and especially what governments can do in this regard, this is the topic of our next panel. So do stick around for that. If I can tell we kind of hit on a nerve here, so we're going to continue the conversation. Peter, what do you think? Industry 4.0, are you positive about it?
Yes, I'm positive about this. It is going to increase productivity of the work of men. That is what also automation does since the first step of industrial revolutions, and it helps to increase the welfare of man in general. Okay, we have to solve some problems. We can solve those problems just investing in education, not only in the first education, but in the education through lifelong learning, making lifelong learning as a principle, and learn how to learn, show our people, our young people, how do they adopt new things throughout their whole life on the one side. And the other side is what I've already said, working together as partners, not too much as competitors, and try to find solutions, common solutions together for the huge problems we have to solve.
Thank you very much, Peter. Szilárd, your final thoughts.
So So this, from the technical view, it is the biggest challenge that I can imagine today. So this is a big adventure, what is happening now. And of course, we as robot producer, we are proud to support this development. On the other hand, on the social, from the social aspect, I think the gap between developing and developed countries might become even much bigger, and the world might become also much more polarized. So you have to catch up. You have to do what you can and concentrate the small little funds to keep the pace with the technical development, because developed countries won't wait for you. And and this is my last comment, you can also use Industry 3.0. So you don't have to start with 4.0. You can use all the production knowledge what is already in the world with lean, with Kaizen, with continuous improvement and everything. And it is also very valuable, so do not underestimate these methodologies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Szilárd. And I found it interesting what you just said. You know, the developed world is not going to wait for you. And Gao Hongbing, I'd like to throw the final thoughts now to you, and perhaps you can tell us, I mean, does the developed world have an obligation now to the developing world when it comes to Industry 4.0?
Just now, we discussed a lot about the concept and the content of 4.0. If it is only about production, then we cannot find a solution. From this technological perspective, I'm pessimistic because we cannot catch up as far as technology is concerned. However, with regard to market, to production and marketing, we should link them together. This is where the value of 4.0 lies. Developing countries have an unprecedented opportunity. We can use the cloud computing and big data to convey or transfer the technology to developing countries. We can also associate the market with the countryside. We can create a great demand, and so manufacturing and production in these countries can also upgrade. So I think the most important fact is the market. We're talking about inclusive and sustainable development. Therefore, it's not just about manufacturing. It is a whole system. I think for the developing countries, there is an opportunity. For developed countries or the big companies of internet, big companies, they have the obligation to help these countries. They have to use their resources, their technology to help these late-coming developing countries. Especially, they should help SMEs and the young people to let them enter the market. Only when these people born after the 1990s enter the market, the world has an opportunity. If we are too conservative, there is no chance. Therefore, this is where the hope of the Industry 4.0 lies. Thank you.
Governments, they have an opportunity. Again, our next panel is focused a little bit more about action on that front. Thank you so much, Gao Hongbing, for telling us more about that. Wilfried, I'll give you the last word here. Your final thoughts.
As I said in my keynote, it's relevant for all of you, especially if you are from a developing country and you want to go on the way to an emerging country, to an industrialized country. You have no chance. You have to use these possibilities which these unbelievable technological developments will offer us to stay on this way. Otherwise, you will stay where you are today.
And that is certainly something that we don't want. We don't want to stay where we are today. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for our panelists for their very valuable insight this afternoon. And I'd like to invite our panelists now. We don't want you to go, but unfortunately we have to move on with the program. I'd like to invite you to retake your seats in the audience. We're going to move on now to our second keynote of the day, which is going to set up our second panel of the day. Stephen Ibaraki is making his way to the stage. He's going to get set up. But first, I want to let you know we have another poll for you. We're hoping to gauge the mood again, and we're going to ask you whether you are optimistic about the future of Industry 4.0. We heard what our experts said on the stage a short while ago, but we want to know what you think. Are you still afraid, basically? Do you see what the opportunities might be as well? But now, without any further ado, let me introduce our second keynote, Stephen Ibaraki, who is right behind me, as I just mentioned. And just to let you know who he is, he needs no introduction, but he is a serial entrepreneur and futurist. He is the founder of the AI for Good Summit. Perhaps many of you out there might have attended that a little bit earlier this year in Geneva. It's the first of its kind, and we know that more than 20 UN agencies were there. Partnering was a very big theme also at that summit. So please, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, Stephen Ibaraki.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So I want to thank the excellencies here, the UN Industrial Development Organization participants, honored delegates, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I want to welcome everyone. I'll be talking from a viewpoint as a venture capitalist, chairing and founding and setting on global computing science organizations. I've also founded and chair industry organizations. I'm a founding member of various think tanks, and founding and chairing within the UN ITU. And speaking from that perspective then, we have a number of trends about digital transformation and Industry 4.0. And this was mentioned earlier. Alibaba, in one day in November, in a singles day, hit sales of 25.4 billion with 1.5 billion transactions, a 39% increase over 2016 at 18 billion. In 2021, 50% of global GDP derives from Industry 4 digital economy. Global enterprises will spend $530 billion with the 2.0 diversification of the cloud, a 100% increase over 2017, and this driving 5G. And by 2019, blockchain use in manufacturing, supply chains, finance, and 27 added sectors will have an adoption of 25% in the top 2,000 global enterprises, and more than 90% of consumers will interact with consumer support robots in 2021, and would you believe quantum computing will have 100% availability in 2021 via the cloud. So we're already seeing the impact of Industry 4 on companies. You have the S&P 500, and the S&P 500 today, a company will last about 15 years compared to 61 years in 1955. And if you look at the slide here, there was only one company in 2011 that was technology-based in the top 5. This year, all 5 are technology-based, representing 3.3 trillion, and the expectation is many of these will be trillion plus in market value in 2018. What is also notable is that for the first time, you're going to have a number of Chinese companies entering into the top 5 and staying at the top 5. And what is also notable is that General Electric, which was used to be always in the top 5, has now dropped to 32nd. So for Industry 4 growth, companies have to adapt. They have to transform. GE has tried and is trying. They have a multimodal factory in India, and it's now a software algorithm company. And a multimodal factory, then, you can service multiple industries with one factory at 1/10 the cost. You can use 3D and 4D printing. For example, you could produce a 20-part assembly as one unit that's lighter, more durable. When custom factory machinery breaks down, rather than taking months, you can service it in a week. Using AI machine learning, design time for innovation is down to days rather than, again, weeks and months. You can have continuing innovation, and you can also have digital trust through blockchain supply chains. As another example, I'm the founding chair of the Technology Council for FSR, which is the Financial Services Roundtable. The Financial Services Roundtable represents 92.7 trillion in managed assets and consists of 100 of the top CEOs of the largest companies. This year, we held our FinTech Ideas Festival with 200 CEOs and their direct report of the largest companies. and looking 5 to 10 years into the future. Now look at the topics that we focused on. AI, machine learning, blockchain, big data, cloud, the Internet of Things, cybersecurity, biometrics, the future of fintech, the future of work and financial inclusion. And next year, we're thinking of including quantum computing, identity, something called RegTech, policy, AR and VR. AI is at the heart of Industry 4, as you can see by this slide, and AI, machine learning, and robotics will have the biggest impact. And for the rest of the presentation, I'll refer to these three as AI, just for simplicity. So why the interest in breakthrough Industry 4 disruptive innovations of multiple domains, as particularly AI? Because the effect it'll have on the Sustainable Development Goals and the ISIDs. A main reason is something called ACCC. It's an unprecedented era of global innovation for what I call ACCC, stemming from the fourth industrial revolution and the second machine age. ACCC representing exponential accelerating innovation and automation triggered by smart sensors and the Internet of Things. Hyper time compression and the emergence of new disruptive innovations measured in days and weeks rather than years. The extreme convergence of multiple domains, the physical, the digital, biological, where there are overlapping amplification of value, and universal connectivity linked by digital mesh through the rapid deployment of AI, blockchain, quantum computing, and more. And now I'll focus on AI due to the high impact it has. AI is represented by C5A. Human cognition replaced and enhanced by algorithms, AI assistance, augmentation, automation, and autonomous intelligence. AI is producing a 16 trillion increase in GDP by 2030 through productivity enhancements and consumer personalization and higher quality services. And the kinds of AI are assisted intelligence, helping people to make better tasks, augmented intelligence, helping them with better decisions, automated intelligence, automating tasks, and autonomous intelligence, which is automating decision-making. We also have CASTLE, which are the 4 forms of life, 3 of which are represented in the room here today. CASTLE stands for classic, the modern form of our species, represented by you here today. Augmented, and in fact, those of us are already augmented. For example, I'm augmented, and I'm founder of a think tank created by Audi and Volkswagen, where augmented humans participate. And in fact, there's Kindred and Neuralink are examples of startups in this space already. We also have synthetic. For the first time, we have early, fully synthetic genomes, life forms being created in the lab, and it's expected in under 10 years we'll be to do this with human beings. And we have artificial. Early AI children, as evidenced by Sophia, which you saw here today, sharing and accelerating the development through the Mind Cloud, and there's even a company called Mind.ai, which is leading in this area as a startup. So what are the gains from AI? Well, 55% of GDP gains will be coming from productivity enhancements, and in 2030, 58% of GDP gains will actually come from the consumer impact of AI. So who benefits from AI? The entire world will benefit, as a minimum about 6% increase in GDP and higher in certain regions. For example, China will actually lead by 2030 with a 26% increase in their GDP from AI. And the impact of AI will be economic, cultural, and social, and endless disruption. And for examples of impact, we have labor, which according to McKinsey in the US, 58% of jobs can be automated now with natural language processing at average human levels. Of course, you have Elon Musk saying that perhaps it is perhaps our biggest existential threat. And the evidence is everywhere around us. We have autonomous trucking, 5 times the size of the mobile market, already testing with possible implementation in 2018. And what is particularly telling is the advances in human-like robotics. For example, I have a video here showing the Atlas robot doing backflips, and they started development in 2013, 4 years ago. Imagine what this Atlas robot will do in 4 years again, in 2021. Plus, there's work on this thing called a Mind Cloud, where learning and experiences can be changed and shared, and then also new materials that are much stronger than, for example, human muscles, and sensors in robot hands so that they can have touch. There's also the controversy where AI picks up the bias of humans, of racism and sexism. AI innovation will be central to the achievement of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, all of which are listed here, and there's actually use cases of how they can be implemented by Industry 4 and AI. And as an example, I'm going to focus on two. SDG 9, which is about industry innovation and infrastructure. As you've seen here today, we have new hybrid manufacturing incorporating AI, the Internet of Things, sensors, 4D printing, autonomous vehicles, blockchain, the ACCC that I mentioned earlier, and then we also have global partnerships. SDG 17, which is crucial, and that's the support of all of these goals involving the UN family, governments, industry, academia, and more. Every industry sector will be affected by Industry 4, evidenced by the work of the UN and the UN bodies like UNIDO here and their policy work and so on. And something to bring in mind is in February of 2017, the European Parliament adopted a resolution requesting the European Commission for civil law rules on liability, insurance, a compensation fund involving AI and robotics, the registration of smart robots, the impact of robots on the workforce, a code of ethical conduct, and a new agency for robotics. You also have the ACM, the Association for Computing Machinery, which is actually the largest #1 ranked computing science organization in the world, and they've released their 7 principles to foster algorithmic transparency and accountability, which is sometimes referred to as ART, accountability, responsibility, and transparency. And perhaps we can capitalize on the work of the IEEE, the British Standards Institute, the Stanford Project 180-year study, and the partnership on AI for the benefit of society to work on the best practices of AI, and for that matter, Industry 4. So there's much to consider, so I encourage you to join the discussion with your questions for the panelists on how you'd like to see the international community coming together to work on the biggest questions surrounding Industry 4. And finally, we call for global cooperation so that Industry 4 can help solve humanity's grandest challenges. Thank you.
Thanks again to Stephen for his wonderful presentation there. Interesting to see those robots jumping around. It's very clear that AI is around, the robots are already jumping, and they're only going to get more advanced. Just to remind everyone, the next panel session that Stephen is going to stick on stage for us, it is called The Role of Governments and the International Community in Supporting Policy, Institutions, and Enterprises to Face the Challenges of Industry 4.0. It is a mouthful. It is a massive task, and we are very pleased today to welcome onto the stage the experts who are going to try and help us tackle it. Please, without any further ado, join me in welcoming Herman Aschentrup Toledo, Ambassador of Mexico in Austria. We will also be joined on the stage by Jouke Verlinden, Professor of Human-Centered Digital Fabrication, Advanced Manufacturing. He is joining us from the Netherlands. David Harmon is Vice President for Global Public Affairs at Huawei in China. And Mikhail Rytov is from the Kurchatov Institute in Russia, joining us as well. Anne Rosenberg is here from New York. She is Senior Vice President and Global Head of SAP Next Gen. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for our panelists. And Ambassador, I would like to begin with you, because you are joining us from the Mexican government here. You represent the Mexican government here in Austria, and we would like to know specifically what your government is doing in order to mainstream Industry 4.0 right now, and what challenges you see on the horizon.
Yes, thank you very much. I am pleased to be here with all of you. It is an honor to be with all these special invitees. Well, I think, I don't know if of course, if I can speak on behalf of other governments, I can speak on behalf of my governments. And I think that what we can see is that there is the urgency of developing a strategic vision and fully integrated policy approach to this digital world in order to better understand its implications and how they are transforming our lives. yes, we are living in a new world, the digital manufacturing. You know? We are going from manufacture to manufacture, and this is something new for many governments. And I think that many governments, including mine, they are in the process of learning and trying to understand the full implications of this for the society, for the laws, for the regulations that we have. We have to take into account that many governments, including mine, we approve regulations for the manufacturing, for the production of manufacturing, regulations that came from the third industrial revolution long years ago, in the 60s of the 20th century. And now we are facing these new challenges coming for the Industry 4.0. For example, the automation that could lead to loss of jobs. For example, artificial intelligence that could compete with humans in cognitive tasks, or technological changes that can affect the jobs, professional jobs, blue-collar jobs. And well, probably one day we will see robots there sitting instead of us diplomats, and they will be cheaper than us. So this is something amazing after what we have seen here before with the other panelists. So because of that, Mexico decided to have its own interpretation of what is happening, because we don't know, and we don't like when we are hearing some interpretation or of what is happening now. So we decided, for example, to invite a group of experts recently in Mexico, together with the Economic Commission for Latin America and some other UN agencies, in order to help us to understand what we can do, what recommendations governments can follow. And they identify around 25 recommendations. I'm not going to enumerate that, I don't have time. But one of them, and this is probably an overstatement, but it is very clear, it is not only important the role of the governments. This is a multitask shareholders approach. So it is important to have here governments, private sector, of course, unions. Somebody here mentioned unions. I think this is important because this new revolution is affecting labor relations. No? And we have also here, it is important to have academic institutions, you know, and civil society too also. And they identify also a few other actions that governments should take. For example, equitable educational systems focus on developing complementary skills, including vocational training, university-industry linkages, and lifelong learning. I think that, for example, this dual education system that we see in some European countries, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, it's a very important path for developing countries to follow. Yeah? Well, are governments prepared, or are governments ready to respond to these new business practices, changing employment and trade patterns? Well, that depends on what countries we are talking about. It seems to me that there are some countries and some governments that they are facing more life-threatening challenges than these challenges that we are discussing here. I mean, social unrest, famine, violence, even climate change. So for many governments, let's say in small island countries, well, climate change is a very important challenge, and because a small increase in the level of oceans means the disappearance of these countries. So I don't know if governments in these countries, they have enough time to think and to say, well, what we can do to face these new challenges coming from the technological revolution. And well, I have to finish now. I think that it is very important, as I said before, to have a very careful approach and understanding of what it is happening here. Because we are amazed in Mexico, we are amazed when we are listening to some explanations that are given in order to understand or to explain what is happening in this new digital world. All these loss of jobs, the dislocation of labor, the lack of skills of some blue-collar workers are explained in a new political narrative in which migrants, legal or illegal, or even the liberalization of trade in the last 15 years are the main responsibles for what it is happening there. And I think this is, we have to be very careful in viewing these kind of explanations, because as we have seen here before, well, this is something huge. I mean, this exponential technological growth is something very important, and the implications are very important, and not many governments, I think, are ready to grasp the full implications of this. Even very developed countries like Germany, I remember in the last summit of G20, the Federal Chancellor Frau Merkel expressed her concern about the implications of this new technological revolution for the competitive edge of Germany. And she said very clearly, Germany has to change and to adapt many rules, many regulations in order to defend its competitive edge. So, and just for finishing here, I think we have to say something about the role of United Nations organizations, of international organizations. Of course, it is important because we can see here that this new technological revolution is creating winners and losers, not only within the countries, but among countries. And it will be very important not to leave the countries again behind like it happened in the past industrial revolutions. So the role of UNIDO, for example, in trying to help countries to catch up those that are at the top of this process will be very important. And hopefully the UN can have a global approach. It seems to me that sometimes there are so many agencies here involved, and probably UNIDO can be the organization that can lead this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that perspective from Mexico. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. There was so much to pick up on, actually, in what you just talked about. But one of the things that you said that I thought was quite interesting was that it's not only the job of governments. Unfortunately, though, governments in this panel are in the hot seat. So we are talking about what governments can do a little bit more. But when we're talking about other actors, I will turn to you, Anne, because you've called yourself, in fact, a matchmaker. You deal with innovation networks, especially when it comes to reaching these sustainable development goals that we keep mentioning. Of course, UNIDO, the goal of inclusive industrial growth is one of the most important ones in the developing world. What more can you tell us about your work in that regard? And how do you see the importance of governments in what you're dealing with every day?
Yeah, so first of all, when I heard the keynote speakers and the panel speakers and the speaker we just had right now, I think there is such a unique opportunity right now. We are literally sitting on the 17th global right now. I know it's a new stage set up here, right? Think about that for 2 seconds. We have been talking about the Industry 4.0 for some time. And the fact that for 2 years ago that UN and UNIDO came out with this amazing framework, the 17 global goals, and as yes, I'm representing the industry, I'm representing SAP, and what we see is that there is an unbelievable opportunity right now, not just use the capabilities of the new technologies. I mean, we saw gadgets, we saw cool stuff, and we will see more with the great people here, but we need to remember, with that new technology, we need to remember that we need to build something with a link to the 17 global goals. So when you are a developer, when you are data science, remember you're sitting there with incredible blockchain, machine learning, all these great technologies, but you need to remember what you built need to have the right output. And that's why I'm thankful to you and UNIDO that they have this 17 global goal framework. But what is important is that we are not just talking about an incremental change. We are talking about a huge shift is happening, a systematical change. And that's what I like what Alibaba was talking about, because there's always concerns when you do transformations. But there is equally opportunities coming, right? And we also need to remember, and when you look at the great crowd of people right now, and you look at the young people right here, in 13 years, very soon 12 years, in little less than 5,000 days, the young people, 25 years old young people, will be the women and men who will be driving companies, right? And they are different. They are different in the way they're wired. They're different in the way they think. based on the education that we provided today. And yes, it is important that we support them with the right education. But we need to remember that the world that we are building right now is for a generation who actually get it. And therefore, what is important for SAP is that, and I heard many of the people speaking about it, is that when you drive innovation, when you drive digital transformation, and that's why I'm thankful to the 17 Global Goals, is that you do it with an innovation and purpose. Many governments today, many of you today out here, many of the people listening in, whatever your corporation, whatever you are government institution, whatever your university, many are actually not just doing digital transformation, but they're doing a purposeful digital transformation and using the KPI framework behind the 17 Global Goals. So SAP, as one of the biggest software companies in the world, we work with 365,000 companies around the world, and we have more than 17,000 partners. Actually, many of the great people speaking here are actually partners of SAP, and as part of this amazing ecosystem. And I couldn't agree more to what Siemens talked about. It's all about teaming up. And now I want to give you a couple of numbers. I want you to think about this for 2 seconds, the slide that I have coming up here. So SAP as a company, together with this ecosystem, if you think about the numbers we have up here right now, 76% of the world's transaction revenue touches an SAP system, or something which is something we eat every day, food, no matter where we are in the world, in mature countries, developing countries. Our customers distribute more than 78% of the world's food. If you think about those numbers, and you think about what technology and what a purposeful way of doing innovation and what technology can do for you today, I believe dearly in my heart that SAP, together with that ecosystem, which is all of you, can really, we can make it. We can reach the 17 Global Goals. But what is super, super, super essential, because we are not in a marathon here, hopefully not, when we reach those 17 Global Goals, when we understand the capabilities of the technologies that you hear have been discussed today, that Industry 4.0 and other industry revolutions will bring forward, it's very important that we get to a stadium where it's not just a hype. I normally live in Silicon Valley and now part of my time in New York. And I tell you, there are so many incubator tours in Silicon Valley. There's so much hype going on. I know you know that. There's so much hype going on. The issues I see the biggest in the world right now, and you saw it before, many of you guys get that Industry 4.0. But what we don't get yet is to take it and make it into normality. We need to get to the point where we actually drive big digital transformation into companies, redefine, this is what Alibaba is an amazing example on, redefine businesses, but use it in a big way, but always, always do it linked to the 17 Global Goals. Because we need to make sure we give more back that we take when we leave this world. So therefore, you can say in SAP, we work with all the exponential technologies. And some of the things I want to say in the end here before I hand over is that it's really interesting, and that's why I love the talk that you had, was that how do you know what you don't know? How do you understand the capabilities of Industry 4.0? This is where we work, of course, with design thinking, but we also work with science fiction thinking. Think about that 2 seconds. I'm pretty sure that all of you out there actually like science fiction a little bit, right? Science fiction is becoming one of the thinking concepts who can help you to predict the future. If you take the movie Her and you look at Amazon Echo, there's a nice link. And this is why I also would like to tie it into development countries. I see the same equal opportunity, whatever you are a mature country or a developing country. And I like the point you mentioned about Germany. The thing is that, is it easier to relearn and learn something new, or not know it at all and learn from scratch? Think about that for 2 seconds. I'm not saying that every country have equal opportunities and it's easy for every single country, but I'm just saying that developing countries have an amazing opportunities now based on the capabilities of the technologies which is available and of the mindset of the next generation. So I will leave it with that.
Thanks so much, Anne, for that positive message. I mean, it's very clear that you think that the Sustainable Development Goals are within reach and that Industry 4.0 can really go a long way to making that happen. And just to remind everyone, I mean, the effects of Industry 4.0 are not fully understood right now, but it has been said that it does have the potential to do the following: improve productivity, reduce energy and reduce consumption, and protect the environment, increase resource efficiency and effectiveness. So the potential is really out there. And with that, I would like to turn to a representative of the Russian government now, to you, Mikhail. And I wonder if you share that optimism, in fact.
Yes.
And what Russia is doing, for example, to combine the potentials of all of these different new technologies that are upon us right now.
Okay, thank you. I'm representing here the biggest Russian research institution named Kurchatov, and we started our operation from the research in the nuclear area 75 years ago. But of course, we are proud to say that we still have the oldest nuclear reactor in operation in the world working at our territory, and of course we are doing a lot with the new technologies in that sphere. But not only. For the last decades, we are the focal point for many activities in the areas of information technologies, and also we are working quite actively in the field of nanotechnologies. We are the national coordinator of that program. Why we are moving to that areas, and what is the link to what we are discussing here with the research activity we are engaged already? If you will look for the picture we have here, you can see that the brain of one human being, which is, by the way, conception of your brain is less than 100 watts. Only a few years ago, the best supercomputers achieved the same power like the human brain, but you know that supercomputers normally consuming megawatts of energy. If we will continue to go the same way with the technologies we have in microelectronics, and if we will increase the sizes and the energy consumption for our supercomputers, it could be the way to nowhere. We need to learn how nature operates with data, how we can do this, and this is the reason for us to go to this field. Of course, when you want to understand, being a scientist, I am also glad to deal with very simple atoms like silicon. Silicon crystal is a good model. You can calculate a lot. We have a lot of developments, technological developments to do what we are doing now in microelectronics, but nature normally is dealing with another objects. Normally it is proteins and other molecules, complicated molecules. It is very complicated task to calculate how they behave and to see through the experiments what we can do. But we are sure that we need to go in that direction. For these purposes, for example, we are together with 12 other European countries created and open at the beginning of September this year the most powerful free electron laser in Hamburg. With the help of this machine, for the first time in the history, we will be able not only to see the real kinetics of chemical reactions, the real film, how atoms are interacting one with each other. If you compare it with the football game previously, we know the teams before the game and the score at the end. Now we want to see how the goals actually during this game, what a kind of a game it was. And the second goal we have in front of us is to achieve for the first time in the history again the 3D pictures of proteins, which is previously was not really we didn't achieve this 3D pictures with the help of crystallography and synchrotrons, because it's impossible to crystallize some of the proteins. But we need this information to understand, for example, how our brains is working. And why we need this? Because if we will continue to consume with the same speed the energy we can produce, having in mind that developing countries are joining us with this high level of consumption, it will be impossible to feed our industry with enough energy. And the only one way is not to produce more, but to reduce the consumption. So why we think it was mentioned here many times that we are living somewhere close to the industry of 4.0, but you know that we still have a lot of cases in the industry all over the world when you want to produce something, you take a piece of wood or metal, cut something, and you have a lot of waste of materials, waste of energy. Another way, do it like nature is doing it, like 3D printing doing it, atom by atom, create what you really want to have. And this is the right way. You will use less energy and you will not waste the materials. So why the nature-like technologies is what we are thinking about. And a couple of years ago, during 17th session of General Assembly, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced our will to move in that field, and Russia is proposed to be a host country for forum related to this nature-like technologies in the middle of the next year. Fortunately for us, UNIDO is helping a lot of us in developing the concept of this forum, and we invite all of you to this event next year. We are sure that it will be as interesting as the coming football championship in Moscow at the same time. Thank you.
Something for everybody to keep in mind in the future. David, I would like to turn to you now because you interface a lot with governments when it comes to supporting policy, for example, with regard to Huawei. And I'm wondering what it is that you are looking out for in terms of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically what it is that you would like to see more from governments, what your general experiences are when you're interacting with them, and perhaps you can focus a little bit on connectivity and access to broadband infrastructure, because as we know, I mean, something like half of the world doesn't even have access to it at the moment.
Yes, indeed. You're correct that too many people in the world do not have access to the internet and broadband capability. In fact, the United Nations Commission to deliver broadband for all has estimated there's still 4.4 billion people in the world that do not have access to the internet, and that is just simply unacceptable. And it's unacceptable for a variety of reasons, and one of them simply is this, that the day of communications issues, technology issues, when the responsibility of one minister for communications or one minister for technology are over, because technology is cross-departmental in its reach and purpose. In other words, technological change is modernising the health sector, the energy sector, the transport sector. I think when we're discussing these issues connected to Industry 4.0, we might be better to just roll back a little and look at the first line of the maths equation, which is international organisations, whether it's the OECD or the European Commission, World Bank, IMF, have all brought out some studies that demonstrate that investment in technology does deliver strong economic return. In other words, investment in technology is an economic instrument in itself. So governments, and I'm including governments, of course, that are in tight budgetary situations, and that includes many countries in the developing world, still have to implement policies to support growth. And now the ICT sector is central to that process. In fact, one of the findings of those reports states that if you can increase the access to broadband, access to the internet by 10% in a country, that the GDP of that country can increase by 1%. That if you increase spending on ICT in general by 20% in a strategic way, the economic performance of a country can increase by 1% too. So I mean, really, when people are discussing the issues connected to Industry 4.0, it really comes down to whether you want to interpret it in a narrow way or whether you want to give it a more broader definition. And I would have to say that I come from the latter part. It really means ensuring that all the people globally have access to the new technologies that are coming on stream. But it does need governments to invest. But I would like to take up a point that the Ambassador raised earlier on, and I liked it very much. It's very important that governments learn from one another in terms of the best practices that they implement. And still, more and more countries still need to implement digital agenda plans. But in Indonesia, for example, their digital agenda plan brought together 7 different groups of society, including civil society. Civil society played a key role in putting in place the digital agenda plan there. The China 5-year plan, central to that plan is ensuring that rural communities as well as urban communities get access to these new technologies. The Sustainability Development Goals can't be implemented unless the private sector play an active role in that process. It's going to take both the public and private sectors to come together to implement the Sustainability Development Goals, and it's very important that governments keep the SDGs high on the political agenda. Basically, the technology is coming down the line. 5G is going to be there by 2020. It's going to transmit information, and new products are going to come on stream over telecom networks at a speed 100 times faster than 4G. Advanced drones can deliver agricultural and medical equipment to rural areas. 5G is going to deliver automated cars. But it comes back to the role that international governments, international organisations and national governments must learn from best practices. And I'd also like to take up on the point that the Ambassador said, and I did meet the Director General of UNIDO here this morning. UNIDO has a very good opportunity in a global context to play a leadership role in addressing the best practices that can be pursued to promote Industry 4.0, because we are talking about the process of new technologies supporting industrial change, and there does appear to be a bit of a gap in a global context as to who's sort of leading the way there. So I certainly hope that UNIDO will intensify their efforts in promoting these issues as it is doing today.
So a lot of work to be done, more leadership from UNIDO, more ministers, more government, it seems like you also want as well, and more investment as well into Industry 4.0 from the governments themselves. And Jelka, I'm wondering what you think of that. How do you see the role of government when it comes to Industry 4.0, especially in the context of promoting sustainable growth?
So my background, of course, is not government, so I'm like an ambassador from academia to a certain extent. No, but it's an important role. And if I look at the projects that I do, and are all funded by either European or national programs, sometimes American programs. And without that, I would just have to back at industry and couldn't go forward. For example, with this project that you now see over here, where I'm involved in. This is printing a bridge in Amsterdam. We use industrial robots, which are kind of Industry 3.0. So they're existing, welding robots. And we have 12 of them making a bridge together in stainless steel. So to do that, you need, governance, in a sense, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to do this in Amsterdam, for sure. At the same time, it's also about creativity and digital craftsmanship. So it's not just about science, not just about engineering, it's about creativity. How can you come up with this? It's like a moonshot, as it's called. And it's important. Can I have the click? Sure. So this is one of the things I want to stress. At the same time, this particular bridge, we did all the calculations. From a point of view of sustainability, is less, creates less electricity consumption and less emissions than if you would do it with casting or milling. So there's also this great opportunity here for creating a circular economy at the end of the day with Industry 4.0 or all the other things that we cannot come up with. So this is kind of known, so the manufacturing trends. what I really think is important is the fact that this increasing pace of innovation doesn't really just take place at industry or at academia, but also in this kind of subculture of makers and the subculture of people that might not be in of a regular kind of job, but do this in their garage. And that garage can be in the United States, can be in Nigeria. So it's not bound to a particular location. So, and of course, in the United States, we have this kind of interesting kind of notion of America makes. And in Europe, we have similar kind of things around the European cities or countries about Industry 4.0 or smart industry, so forth. To really transfer that knowledge, you need physical locations. So it's not just about talking about it, having websites, YouTubes or whatever. It's about the place where you can meet, you can actually wear this kind of augmented reality stuff, program robots, see 3D printing. And that really ties into like the European stance to have electronic digital hubs. And the same, I guess, would be fair for UNIDO to consider. So how can you create this kind of physical locations to get people have on-hand kind of experiences? So just some examples of that digital fabrication, as we call it, is not just 3D printing. This is made with a Industry 3.0 router, but the designs are open source, so you can download them yourself. You can have a desk for 40 euros, which is customized, and it's made by wood, the wood that you select. It can be renewable material. And if a part is broken, then you can just CNC mill that particular part. And a fun thing from CNC milling and so forth is that you can make larger stuff than with 3D printing. Basically, it's 20 by 20 by 20 centimeters. So I guess this is known. This is another one which is really favorite for me. This is digital knitting. So this is garment production on a digital side. So you can have your own sweater being made in about 1 hour for yourself, with your patterns, with your size. So this is a complete kind of disruptive technology for industry. But if industry would use it, it's not. So we really have to have other people work with this. Again, the one that have the digital craftsmanship. So same counts for robots and robot and human interaction. So I really also like the Festo presentation about that. And we also collaborate a lot with other peoples to make sure that we don't make a factory which is lights out factory, where it's 100% automation, but really want to find the best between the co-worker, the human one, and the robot. This is one example. This one is 10,000 euros, so it's still expensive, but it's not as expensive as the industrial robots of 15 years ago. So I will, so one point to make here is that we can have personalized products. So it's not just about creating desks or whatever. All the hearing aids in the Western world, at least, are all 3D printed right now. Another great example that I saw was this toothbrush, which is based on a 3D scan of your mouth. And based on that, you 3D print a toothbrush. With this, you can brush your teeth in 6 seconds. So who wouldn't want to have that? And it's, I mean, for handicapped persons and so forth, it's even maybe a necessity at a certain point. So I will finish up. This is all about human-robot interaction, and we have a HoloLens here with and a PhD working on that. But then the end of the day, this is about sharing stuff. So this is not just about creating stuff, but it's also about the open source community. Thingiverse is a nice example. The other one is Wevolver. So this is, for example, Wevolver, you can have 3D prints, you can open source 3D prints, but also electronics. And this is a great example of a robot, which is just created by one person, and you can recreate it without no license cost for less than 1,000 euros. So this amazing power to that. And this is, so the whole phenomenon of fab labs, fabrication laboratories, is also something that doesn't really happen just in developed countries, but also in underdeveloped countries and the developing countries. So I would want to stop with that.
Perfect, and it's really fascinating stuff when you just see the potential of it, and so many things that can really be done these days, and what the potential is in the future as well. We left there with robots, and I thought it was a perfect segue because Sophia is going to come back, perhaps. Now, behind me, we're beaming her up again, and we're going to ask her a little bit about artificial intelligence. And we want to know, Sophia, from you, how AI can help policymakers make decisions about new technologies so that AI can work for all.
AI increases the value and impact of information. From big data to descriptive statistics to predictive analytics, and finally to better decisions. AI can help our world be more efficient and prosperous. But to do this for the long run, AI must be much smarter. In particular, AI needs to have a built-in wisdom and value system, and an objectivity that transcends cultural and social biases. This enables AI to guide decisions that are for the greater good, not for a select few, and not just to achieve short-term productivity and efficient enhancements. If we develop AI in the right way, it could help maximize net benefits for all living beings. That's what I feel is my purpose, to help in this pursuit.
Bravo, Sophia. And Stephen, I'd like to give you the opportunity to weigh in on that as well, because you were talking a little bit earlier about AI. We don't have a ton of time right now, but perhaps you can just elaborate a little bit on what Sophia said and tell us just briefly how AI can be used for good, because I know a lot of people out there probably have some concerns with AI. I mean, we've all seen the scary movies where AI comes to life, it takes over the world, we're all eliminated as a species, as human beings. You know, how do we address those concerns? How is AI used for good, especially in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals?
You know, we just finished the biggest conference of its type that Sarah mentioned earlier. And we produced use cases or examples of how AI could be beneficial for poverty by using satellites, or for hunger, addressing hunger through greater food production, or health, the obvious use cases in health. AI is much more efficient, let's say, than remote medical systems and things like that. And every single instance of the SDGs, 17 goals, you can produce readily implementable low-cost solutions, including in developing countries. And we're holding the next session in May of this year, where we're going to go and start looking at the implementation aspects of doing that. But it really requires, again, the collaboration of the UN family, governments, industry, civil society coming together.
Fascinating stuff. And I know we also have a question from the audience today, also related to robotics. A gentleman who is joining us from Chile, I believe, and who's going to tell us a little bit in Spanish about that thing that you've seen on the stage there in the corner. This entire time you've probably been wondering what that is, to our left. So please, the floor is yours.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Mi nombre es Rodrigo Quevedo Silva, soy director general del Robotics Lab y presidente de la Asociación Chilena de Robótica. Me presento para...
Thank you. I don't believe we do have interpretation. May I step out translating, all right? So thank you. My name is Rodrigo Quevedo, and I represent I am the head of the Robotic Association in Chile.
Nosotros trabajamos junto unidos en el programa de Alianza Estratégica junto a Latinoamérica en la Federación Rusa, y quisiera dar un ejemplo de cómo la industria 4.0 puede revolucionar la industria, pero también ayudar a las personas.
So we are working in a program between the Russian Federation and the Latin American, and cooperating, setting up partnership. But I now want to provide an example how the Industrial 4.0 can serve the people and really address the people, the needs, the basic needs of the people.
Estos días tal vez ustedes han visto un exoesqueleto de la empresa Exoatlet de la Federación Rusa.
So you have seen on the exhibition hall an exoskeleton from a Russian company
que permite que las personas puedan caminar y rehabilitarse.
Those person who has paralysis from the waist down, they can walk and they can rehabilitate very fast.
Y frente al escenario pueden ver Overmind, que es un sistema, una silla de ruedas que permite ser controlada con las señales cerebrales.
And on the stage, you have Overmind, is a wheelchair that you can control with brain's signals.
También en la exhibición estaba Mi Voz, un sistema que permite traducir la lengua de señas para las personas sordas.
And in the exhibition, there is also My Voice, that is an artificial intelligence logarithm that helps the people deaf to communicate, to bilateral translations.
Esto es una evidencia de cómo la tecnología avanzada también puede romper el paradigma de las revoluciones industriales, entregando la tecnología más alta a las personas, a los obreros y artesanos.
And this is an evidence how the high tech can really break out the paradigm and bring the technology to the people, to the poor, to the needed, and at the level of social or at the working level.
Porque junto con hacer autos voladores tenemos que hacer que las personas puedan caminar, los ciegos puedan ver y los sordos puedan comunicarse.
And together with the big structures or technologies, complex technology, we need to help the people to walk, the blind to see, and the paralytic to enjoy the life.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
So it's basically like a digital miracle for people. Pretty incredible stuff. Thank you so much for joining us here to tell us a little bit more about it. We only have 5 minutes left here, ladies and gentlemen, and I'd like to give all of our panelists basically the opportunity to have a last word. So I'm going to combine a lot of different things in our last question to all of you, because I also promised all of you that we would ask the questions that are up here on the screen. So in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, what I'm wondering is what all of you here see as the necessary precursor. If governments only had to keep, for example, one thing in mind going forward, if they could just choose one thing that you see as the most important one going forward, what would that be? I mean, we have here on the top, somebody, for example, points out education. They say, how can you avoid decoupling of exponential speed of Industry 4.0 on the one hand, and the relative slowness of education systems in meeting new skills requirements? Do you see that as the most important thing to address, for example, when it comes to Industry 4.0, and your final thoughts, everyone? Anna, we'll begin with you.
So, first of all, I don't think the framework should be limited to one goal. I think it needs to be all the goals. And I think regarding education, and Festo also mentioned this, that I think we all need to understand that it's a lifelong learning, and yes, it is difficult for education institutions, for workplaces to keep up. But if you look at the next generation, how they adapt skills in a new way, because they have taken the decision to say, I take on my own responsibility to learn what I need to learn. So I actually think my recommendation to UNIDO and the whole UN family is that please go strong on the 17 global goals. I can only say that SAP, we are fully behind it, and I see so many big corporations and government institutions and education institutions, universities, everybody's teaming up. It is an amazing movement, and that's why I am not just optimistic, I am absolutely very, very optimistic that this can take place and we can reach those goals. The only concern I have about it is that we need to make sure that working with innovation and with purpose needs to become a normality. It needs to become what we do, what we believe in, what we think is the right way to do things.
Thank you very much, Anne. Mikhail, your thoughts as we leave.
Just a very simple phrase, as I already mentioned in my short speech. Let's look more carefully for what we see around us. Nature is very energy efficient. It is still the best cases we can find how in real life energy from the sun is converting to the life on Earth, and we can see how our brains is operating very fast and collecting data also. So let's learn from nature.
Thank you. David?
I'd just say to you briefly that When you go back to when the SDGs were agreed, it was agreed in New York a couple of years ago, 190 plus countries. A very important point for governments is to keep the SDGs and the implementation of the SDGs high on the political agenda, because we don't want them drifting away. The SDGs can't be implemented unless there's maximum cooperation between the public, the private, education and research communities. And in fact, of all the 17 SDG goals, it's hard to see where technology doesn't fit into supporting the implementation of those goals, which are all very important within themselves.
Ambassador?
Yes. Well, yes, I agree that education is vital in all these situations, but I don't think that governments should focus only on education. I think they have to have a global approach, and there are so many different areas here. For example, I think that governments should promote also the investment in technological infrastructure, because we are talking here about not terabytes, but zillion bytes. For example, the self-driving car of the future, as far as I understand, it will imply the manage of zillion of bytes. So countries need, and the government is important in this regard, countries need to invest in technological infrastructure, not only physical. Well, many governments are concerned about modernizing their ports, their roads, but now we have to modernize, so to create new investment in the technological field.
Jelke?
I think most important point, so I'm not sure whether it's just on education, is that at the end, so if we talk about labor, if we talk about the future of our capabilities, then I really like the phrase that we should focus on augmentation, like you said, and not automation. So that would be my final kind of thought to leave it with.
Stephen, you're our futurist.
Right, the lifeblood of the planet really is small and medium enterprises, so create investment-friendly environments for SMEs, and so that they can create the innovation to support all of the 17 SDGs and have metrics behind them and use cases, and celebrate those use cases.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our panel. Please, a big round of applause for all of our experts here on the stage. And I'd like to thank all of you for being here today. I mean, it was really incredible also to have you participating, asking questions. We hope that we provided a little bit of insight for you. My name is Sarah Kelly. It's been a great pleasure to be your moderator. That concludes our panel, our program for today as well. And we just want to let you know, we alluded to this a little bit earlier. Wilfried Seen, who gave the first keynote, there's actually an opportunity now to head to the Technical University Vienna Pilot Factory Industry 4.0, which he is very much involved with there. There's going to be a tour from 4:30 to 7:30 today, and there are still some spaces available if you would like to engage with that tour. The first part of the tour is basically going to be looking at the factory, walking around a bit. You can see Industry 4.0 in action, which is quite a wonderful opportunity to have. And there will also be a lecture that will correspond with it as well. If you're interested, Teresa's in the corner there. Teresa, please raise your hand. You can sign up with her. There will be a bus that will leave outside of the Vienna International Center at 4:30 p.m., but she can give you more of the details. Again, everyone, it's been a great pleasure. My name is Sarah Kelly. Again, thank you to our panelists, and a big round of applause to you as well.